So what's going on with the Atlanta Hawks, huh? The Hawks have been nothing short of disappointing this season. As a Bulls fan, I kind of have first-hand experience with disappointment. Our season has been pretty disappointing to me, but we all kind of knew as NBA fans that this was around the level the Bulls might be. But the Hawks had some pretty serious expectations compared to where they are now. After making one of the biggest moves of the offseason and putting all their chips on the table when they moved for DeJounte Murray, people were expecting them to make like a real fight for that 6th seed. But at the time of recording this, the Hawks are 19-22 and sit at the 9th seed in the Eastern Conference. Like I mentioned, most fans did not anticipate Atlanta's season going like this, and I think there's two main reasons why it has.
Now I'm here, okay? I'm past where I thought I could go. I'm like all the way up here with it.
Atlanta's locker room has been one of the worst in the league this season, and it's a pretty poorly kept secret. Outside of Brooklyn at the beginning of the year and Chicago, who seems to be turning it around and fixing their morale issues, by the way, Atlanta has had by and far the worst chemistry. It seems that Nate McMillan is probably coaching his last season for the Atlanta Hawks, and he is pretty alright with that. If you didn't somehow already know about this, Trae Young and Nate McMillan had a pretty public beef. This beef included Trae Young eventually sitting out a game against, I think, the Nuggets because of a miscommunication. All this accumulated with McMillan saying in December that he was considering retirement, which a season going so poorly that a coach can just consider retiring from the sport altogether is crazy to me. DeJounte Murray had a quote the other day that if I was a Hawks fan would and should concern me. He said, there's a lot going on that's non-basketball, and then with the basketball, you've got guys in trade rumors, which is like the most drastic response a guy can give when he's on a multi-year deal playing for a team that wants to win basketball games. And then of course you have a guy like Eric Gordon who just like doesn't even try to hide his hate for Houston. But that's like a different situation because it's pretty public news that Houston wants to move him, and they're also not very good at basketball, so it doesn't really matter. And then of course lastly, DeJounte mentioned the trade rumors, which is probably and obviously alluding to John Collins, who he's had his name dangled in trade rumors for what feels like 3 or 4 seasons now. That they just need to move the poor guy at this point. Because it feels like whenever we have the discussion of like who's going to be moved this season, we're always mentioning John Collins. He's always a name that gets thrown around, and it's like, just get it over with at this point. Rip the Band-Aid off.
Try to move me.
Well, I'm not gonna
Try and move me, bro.
The worst part about all of this is that the basketball is also bad and also really ugly to watch. I think we all knew when the DeJounte trade happened that Atlanta's offense was probably going to get a little worse and was probably going to get a decent bit worse for a little bit as they adjusted to adding another main ball handler to the rotation. What DeJounte was supposed to bring to the table defensively and when Trae is off the court would make up for that dip in offense. But I don't think any of us expected it to get to this point. Atlanta was ranked 2nd in offensive rating last season with a rating of 115.4. This season they are 22nd with a rating of 111.3. By the way, the NBA has taken a ginormous leap when it comes to offensive rating. All these scoring outbursts, the pumped up scores, we've all seen how much scoring has gone up this season. So this, adjusted for inflation, this difference is probably much bigger than it even seems right now. And it's pretty simple as to why the offense is terrible. There's no off-ball movement. Watch any offensive possession from the Hawks this season and you see just how little they move without the ball. And that may be a symptom of the second point, which is that Nate McMillan probably employs one of the worst offensive schemes in the NBA right now. He can run 2 plays, which are screening kicks and driving kicks. The Hawks offense is rarely ever more complicated than that. And the worst part about this scheme is that it may work, and it has worked for teams like Houston in the past when the team can shoot. But the Hawks are bottom 4 in 3-point percentage. They shoot 33 or 32%. They are bad at shooting. It's embarrassing, and I blame Nate McMillan's sets because it isn't much better on the defensive end. Yes, since making the DeJounte trade, the Hawks have jumped from 26th in defensive rating last season to 15th this season. But I give a lot more of that credit to the defensive personnel on the team than Nate McMillan himself. During Wednesday's game against the Bucks, it was egregiously bad. The Bucks just, every fast break, leaked a shooter to the right corner for a 3, and the Hawks never once adjusted to change that. Connaughton and all the Bucks shooters just kept getting easy free threes, and nothing ever changed. Not once.
Now let's say you and I go toe-to-toe on bird law and see who comes out the victor.
So what needs to happen? Or more specifically, what needs to change? Much like there was two main problems with the Hawks, there's two main solutions. The first, if I haven't made it abundantly clear already, they need to fire Nate McMillan. I could be wrong about his offensive and defensive sets, and it could just be that the players aren't listening to him. But even if that is the case, then the problem is that he's lost the control of the players in the locker room, which I think these aren't mutually exclusive things. I think he has lost the control of the players in the locker room and is running bad schemes. Regardless, either of those being a factor for your coach does not lead to successful basketball. And second, it's time to move John Collins. The poor guy, you just keep messing with him. Just move him. He's clearly not helping the locker room. I doubt that you could in any way mend this relationship at this point, so you might as well just trade him while you can. Fire Nate and trade John Collins. Those are your mid-January resolutions. Mid-season as well, I guess. Those are your resolutions, Atlanta. Get them done.